Hey everybody, Steve here. Welcome back to The Varied Life. Today we're going to be talking about some pretty cool stuff, and we'll turn the music off. We'll get right down to business. Today is kind of interesting because being retired in Korea or being retired overseas presents itself some very different situations that you could find yourself in. And so while there's many pros and cons to retiring overseas, there are some frustrations that you will have to overcome. And we're going to talk about some of those things, kind of revisit some of these and some other interesting information. We're going to talk about the SKT phone company and how that got hacked. Probably the biggest telecom provider here in Korea, which is about 25 plus million people. And for a country that has about 51 million people, that's huge. This hack has been deemed as the largest in Korean history. So we're going to talk about that. The doctor strike ends, and unfortunately, it's not the way we wanted it to end. And then we're going to talk about Johnny Somali, the idiot nuisance streamer who is in Korea, and we're going to go over the timeline of some of his antics and how Korea is dealing with that situation. We might even talk about a guy in the Philippines, Vitali, who is a nuisance streamer and how he's being held. And yeah, it doesn't look good for him either. So there's two different ways in which countries deal with nuisance streamers, actually three. Either they ignore him and kick him out, or they press some type of legal action. And yeah, we'll just get into that. Okay, we're going to start off here with the SKT phone company hack. And like I said, it ends up that SKT is the largest telecom provider here in Korea, and that's why we went with SKT. There was a lot of people that recommended them, and then this hack happened. And this is the worst hack ever. Giant loses 70,000 users in just 2 days. And you're going to add two more users to that. So it's going to be 70,002 users, because me and my wife were dropping SKT because of the lack of confidence that we have in the response, not only in the response, the notification, but the response of SKT. And we'll talk about that a little bit. Korea's leading mobile carrier is facing a mounting fallout in a recent hacking, and it was huge. They lost 70,000 users, people switching their phone accounts just 2 days after this whole thing happened. This data breach could spill over into the financial sector. Korean financial authorities on Wednesday launched an emergency response team to tighten security protocols. According to industry researchers, 35,902 SK Telecom users switched to other carriers, following 34,000 and some change users who switched on Monday. And today, which is Thursday, the 1st of the month, we're going to change our service as well. So yeah, it's going to be kind of interesting to see what happens here. We're going to continue on. SKT only gained 11,000, just under 12. Roughly 60% of the users who left SKT migrated to KT, while most of the remaining subscribers switched to LGU+. And I think we're going to go with LGU+. I'm not sure. We're still kind of debating that. We're going to take a look at that today. The severity of the attack is the worst hacking incident in the history of the telecommunications industry. This is huge. When I told you it was huge, it is massive. And there's a lot of people that aren't happy about that for a number of reasons. Basically, it ends up that Rue admitted it was. He added that it will take at least 3 months to completely replace the USIM cards for the company's roughly 25 million subscribers. This is kind of interesting because when we're talking about getting your information hacked and stuff like that, one of the problems that we end up seeing is that everything is done on your eSIM card. And if the eSIM card needs to be replaced, of course, you need to have the stores or, enough eSIM cards to do that. The problem is apparently they don't, and there was a lot of problems with that. We went to a SKT store, T-World store, and to inquire and ask about this because we had seen news reports and people lined up at stores trying to get eSIM cards, and yeah, they just weren't in stock. So now when you go to a SKT store, I don't know if you're all seeing this flickering on the screen. Does anybody? You can leave a comment and let me know because it's freaking me out here. I don't know why it's doing this. This is the first time it's ever done that. So I apologize for that if you see that. But it ends up that stores, they don't even give you the eSIM card because they don't know when they'll get any. That's very problematic. And so you scan a QR code. There's some type of app or something that is activated on your phone that is supposedly a temporary fix to protect your information and so on and so forth. But the problem is that with everything here in Korea, everything is tied to your phone. I mean, your identity is tied to your phone. Your banking is tied to your phone. It is, we see it similar in the United States. But if somebody hacks your phone and gets your eSIM information, they can open loans, they can open bank accounts, they can buy houses, cars, they can reroute the money from your bank, they can withdraw funds, they can do, I mean, it is just massively huge on what they can do with that information. So this is monumentally huge. I think it was like 9.7 terabytes worth of information, or some astronomical number. I think we'll take a look at that. But it is the largest in telecom history. So definitely in Korea for sure. But you need to replace that SIM card. And unfortunately, SKT has just been like, their response is, yeah, we're sorry, we're going to do better. But there was like no sense of urgency, because I think what happens is you get to the top of the pile and you're the top dog, and the hunger and the drive to have good customer service and so on and so forth kind of wanes a little bit when you end up getting at the top, and then you kind of you're sitting back and you're like, oh, we're the king, we have over half of the subscribers in Korea. Oh, we got hacked? Oh, according to our own rules, we're supposed to let everybody know within 24 hours, and we didn't do that. And so, but we're at the top, the response was kind of bad on a number of levels. And so a number of people are leaving SKT. Me and my wife are going to be two of those, so add on to the 70,000. But yeah, it's just not, he apologizes for all of this stuff. He says our initial response was lacking in many ways. And it's like, there he is. Our initial response was lacking in many ways. We'll do everything we can to restore trust and resolve the situation. And that's the CEO of SK Telecom, Ryu Young-song, speaks during parliamentary hearing at National Seoul. He noted that SKT's USIM protection service offers a comparable level of security that both he and SK Group are using the service without replacing their SIM cards. That is the program that we were able to get. Still, a lot of people are nervous about this because, it's you get burned on the stove once, you're not going to touch the stove again. And so I think what we're going to see is a huge migration of people, especially now that trying to get a replacement eSIM card, you have to put in a reservation, and all of that is done in Korean. So foreigners really have a problem because most of them don't even know of the hack unless, some Korean tells them. But the possibility of additional data leaks beyond 3 home subscriber servers confirmed to have been breached. Further confirmation would depend on an ongoing joint investigation. Talks about no signs of fraudulent activity so far. But again, like I said, get your information. You can open bank accounts, you can get loans, you can get things, and that could take time. You can withdraw funds, and depending on how much is withdrawn, how long is, are you immediately going to know? I don't know. It's just very interesting. Says we'll operate a dedicated emergency response center and require financial institutions to report daily on any irregularities. And again, that's a cursory thing. It's really, I don't know. It's just kind of problematic. The cyber attack confirmed to have resulted in a leak of 9.7 gigabytes of data. Was infected with malware on April 18th, delivering a significant blow. So, yeah. 4 subscribers have already filed a lawsuit for 10 million won, $7,300 in damages over the data breach. I'm not sure what the damages would be because it was breached. But again, if your personal information and everything is on your phone and they have access to your eSIM, USIM, yeah, that could be huge. An online community organizing separate lawsuits has amassed around 50,000 members. So yeah, this is going to get pretty wild. Shinhan Securities estimated that the cost of eSIM replacement cards could reach up to 200 billion won based on an average replacement cost of 4,000 per card for an entire subscriber base of 25 million. And let's take a look at... I'm trying to see if we can do this little calculator thing. 200 billion won. There's million, billion, divide by 1460. That comes out to about $136 million is what we're talking about. So that's a lot of money. But the fact that we're put on a waiting list and all that, it just... very, very problematic because a lot of people are kind of scurrying around. And the longer, even though they get the little software thing that is supposed to be a good fix, some people aren't trusting that. And like me and my wife, we just, the response of SKT wasn't good to begin with. And it was delayed, and something that they promised that, oh, well, if you ever get hacked, we'll notify you within 24 hours. Well, that didn't happen. And then it was kind of silent. And yeah, just in how they responded and the news reports and the interviews with the CEO that my wife had watched, just in with a lot of other people, just didn't give everybody warm fuzzy. It seemed like, it wasn't really... How would you put it? It wasn't really from the heart. It was, it was just kind of a blase. Yeah, we're going to fix everything. And so, yeah, today we're going to be getting new surface. As we continue on with this, we're going to take a look and see how foreign residents are often overlooked. Like I said, I would have not have known this unless my wife and I had, been watching the news, and we kind of stay abreast of the things. But a lot of this hacking pretty much only appeared on Korean news sources. And if you don't read, write, and speak Korean, you're going to be out of luck to some degree. So yeah, the eSIM, USIM card. So anyway, foreign subscribers have borne the brunt of the crisis largely due to the telecom provider's failure to communicate directly with non-Korean speakers. Excuse me. Many only became aware through Korean colleagues or social media posts. So hopefully this will help out some of you that are here in Korea that have SKT service. It wasn't until days later that you received a text alert written only in Korean. And I should say, by the way, we never got that text. So some foreigners got the text. We didn't get the text. So we had to go to the store and say, hey, this hack thing, we want to get an eSIM card, what's going on, blah, blah, blah. We never got a text. So, yeah, again, another just doesn't bode well. Text alert written only in Korean, advertising to enroll in an online protection service. That's what we ended up doing. Given the language barrier, few foreign users were likely able to fully understand or act on the message. Now, this is the reason why I like, which one is it? What am I using? Google Chrome, because it has a translation plugin. So, in most text things that you get, you can press onto the text message itself and translate it from Korean to English or whatever language, and you're good to go. So it's not like it's a huge inconvenience or nobody can read it. That's kind of like the norm now. I mean, I get shipping notices and, texts and all kinds of stuff. I even get some spam from time to time, but all I have to do is press on the message, translate to English, and I can see whatever it says. Korean colleague told him, by the way, you should call the operator and request directions on how to sign up for the service. But the thing is that SK Telecom doesn't have a lot of English speaking or foreign speaking customer service reps. Talks about 2 of the 3 major mobile carriers do not offer a separate platform for foreigners. The only exception is LGU Plus. So if you're coming to Korea, that might be something to take into consideration. LGU Plus, I'm not plugging them. We're going to look into them today, which launched a dedicated website to foreign users in 2023 in 4 languages: English, Russian, Chinese, and Vietnamese. So you can do basic service, check your subscription details, exchanging cellular data, blocking, unblocking, small mobile payments, activating and deactivating SIM cards. So yeah, it definitely, LGU Plus is going to be the first place that we check today. We've done some online stuff, but for SKT, the operator did initially release a separate app for foreigner known as T-World Global, which was gradually integrated into the original Korean app. Foreigners are now able to switch to English on the carrier's website. However, information provided in English is scant compared to mother language platforms, only allowing users to check their plans, ensure that their bills are getting paid. So there seems to be a lack of customer service with SKT, and we kind of noticed that, but since the wife is Korean, it was like it wasn't really a big deal. So yeah, the lack of effort by major Korean telecom carriers to enhance foreign language platforms stems from a small proportion of foreign subscribers. But it ends up that, when we go further into this, SK Telecom brands itself as a global leader, and they're going to be reaching out and doing world service and stuff, but yet their customer service for foreigners in Korea is kind of lacking. So yeah, it's kind of interesting on what we end up seeing here. And again, anytime that you're a foreigner in a foreign country and you don't speak the native language, you're going to run into some problems, and you're just going to have to rely on trying to keep yourself educated and in the know of what is going on. And of course, a lot of that can be done through studying, reading, writing, practicing, the language of the host country that you're in, which is probably the number one way. The second way is to use technology and translation programs and apps and so on and so forth. So while it is an inconvenience for foreigners, and even though, we didn't even get the text. So, what do you do with that? Something that all subscribers were supposed to get a text, but, there's a number of people that we know didn't get a text about this hack either. We had to find out about it on the news. So, yeah, it looks like LGU Plus is what we're looking at, and we're kind of looking at, what was it, the other one? KT and Korea Telecom. What was the other one? KT, blah, 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 blah. What was it? SKT, KTs, and LGU Plus. So we looked at KT and LGU Plus. Kind of looks like we're heading towards LGU Plus. So there's that. The next thing we're going to talk about is the doctor's strike. For those of you who don't know, there's been a doctor's strike that has been going on here in Korea and for over a year. And it boggles the mind on going through this whole situation. For those of you who don't know, over a year ago, it ends up that the Korean government said that, hey, we want to increase the number of doctor slots, increase the number of medical school slots, so that way it increases the number of resident doctors who eventually will become doctors, and we'll have more doctors for our aging population and the overworked doctors that we have. And long story short, the Korean Medical Association, the doctors union, said, no, we're not going to increase the number of doctors because, and this is the Korean Medical Association representative actually said, because there's only so much prestige and we can't share that. It will lessen the prestige. And if you add more doctors, it's going to destroy the medical system. And it's like, I found it really problematic because the government's plan was just to increase the number of doctors, not, lower the standards, which was kind of like, I don't understand what they're talking about here because They're not talking about lowering the standards of becoming a doctor or cutting corners or anything like that. They're just increasing the number of available doctors, which was like 3,058 or something like that, 5,000, and then they dropped down to 3,000 or 4,000, and then it went down to 2,000 and 1,500, and then finally the government caved, and we had an impeachment here in Korea, and their president got impeached, and then basically after he's gone, the Korean government just kind of like folded that over and set it aside and said, okay, we're done. We're not going to do that. To give you a little bit of background on this, every single time that Korea has wanted to increase the number of doctors for the last 27 years, yes, 27 years, the government has always folded. The Korean Medical Association has went on strike. We're not going to do this, and we're in solidarity, and blah blah blah. And we're, how dare you? It's going to destroy the medical system if you increase the number of doctors. And we are at the precipice of being a super age population here in Korea, which I don't know if you know. If you get older, you see the doctor more. You have more prescriptions. You have more problems. And while my wife and I are in really good shape for our age, I'm 59 this year, we do pretty good. But the problem is that there's still medications that I need to get. And I have, let's say for my stomach medication, I have to see a doctor, see a specialist that deals with, internal stomach stuff. And I got to see that doctor and get my prescription. Pain medication that I have to get. So I have to go see the pain med doc, and then I have to get an appointment with him, and then I get a prescription, even on refills. And they're only good for 30 days. So every month I'm going to the hospital and getting, 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 medications. And it's no wonder that the Korean medical system is being overworked. So it's a huge problem. But the problem comes is that now you have more aged population that needs more medical attention, and the Korean Doctors Association for the last 27 years has said, no, we don't want any new doctors. It will destroy the medical system. And they never gave any reason on why it would destroy the medical system. Nobody's lowering standards. You have like 100 teaching hospitals here in Korea, and 40% of the work that is done by them is done by resident trainee doctors. And their supervisors are called professors. And even they went on strike, not altogether. They just reduced the number of days that they worked. So it was and then emergency rooms closed for 1 or 2 days out of the week, and it was really problematic. You had a number of people who died because they could not get treated at hospitals. There was a person who had a heart attack. They ended up going to 7 different hospitals, and they could not be admitted because the hospitals didn't have any doctors, because all the residents went on strike, and some of the seniors went on strike as well. So that person went to 7 different hospitals and ended up dying. There was recently a Vietnamese lady who arrived in Korea. She was pregnant. I don't know, maybe it was an early pregnancy or an early birth, premature birth, but they went to a number of hospitals, and her baby was born in the ambulance because no hospital would take her, because they said there was a language barrier. I mean, we're in the age of technology, and I have an app that Koreans have apps, Americans have apps, everybody has an app that can translate from their native language into Korean and vice versa. And there's apps where I can speak English, the phone translates it and speaks Korean, and the other person speaks Korean, and then it translates it in English so we can carry on a conversation. So I don't understand of how and why that was even an excuse. But yeah, it's and a number of people haven't gotten surgeries. A number of people died because of serious surgeries like cancer surgeries, chemotherapy treatments, and so on and so forth. There's a lot of people who are rich, which I'm not one of them, unfortunately, that got medical care. They go to other countries to get medical care because of the problems that we're experiencing here. And again, the Korean Doctors Association gives no possible solution for anything, especially when it comes to being overworked. And so we're going to jump into that. Let's take a look at this. Doctors asked government to set medical school admissions to 3,058 this week. And when was this? This was April 8th. And of course, we're May here. But this is the most, it's interesting because the most accurate and up-to-date information is the news reports and not so much in the website, which is, I find really odd. Tuesday asked the government to set medical school admissions to 3,058 this week, rolling back the previous administration's quota hike. So in other words, it's going back to what it originally was and how they don't want to add any more doctors at all. The same thing that they've done for the last 27 years. Now it's 2025, so it's the last 28 years. Yeah, it's absolutely insane. Going through, if classes are not normalized by the second week of this month at the latest, it will cause serious disruptions to academic management. Again, if you're gone. Now, this includes medical schools as well. Medical school students stopped going to school because of this strike. So the Korean Medical Association has some huge amount of political pull. And again, we're not talking about lowering the standards of medical school or standards or certifications or anything like that. The Korean government just wanted more doctors, and they wanted to put more doctors in places that aren't huge cities like Seoul, so to get better medical coverage throughout the country. Yeah, it was just absolutely crazy. Students are registered. Many are not attending classes. The government must quickly follow through on its promise and finalize the admissions quota. In other words, bend your knee to us, and we'll get the residents back to work. Which I don't understand how it happens, because if you are talking about residency, even in Korea, it's similar like it is in the United States. Is you do your pre-med, you go to medical school, you graduate that, and then you go to a teaching hospital and you have to do your residency. So depending on what specialty that you go to will depend on how long your residency is. If you're a brain surgeon, obviously it's going to be multiple years. If you're a general doctor, 3 years, something like that. Our daughter is a pediatrician. It took a 3-year residency for that, and she's thinking about doing something else on top of that. She's an overachiever. Obviously she's smart and takes after my wife. She just got the height from me. So, but yeah, here in Korea, it's like if you miss a significant portion of your residency, you have to redo that year. So now this is knocking everything back. And so we're going to have even less doctors when it comes and runs the whole gambit of getting certified and becoming a doctor after residency. There's big problems with that. Also, the same thing in the medical schools. All of these students went on strike as well, so they're going to have to redo that year, so that's going to compound the problem even more. It just doesn't make any sense. Let's see if we can go in here. Some universities, following an inspection, they cannot provide adequate medical education over the next 6 or 7 years. In that case, they should refrain from admitting students in 2026. See, this is going to get worse. And the problem is that with the lack of doctors that we have now, the doctors that are on strike, which is anywhere from 9 to 12,000, depending on the reports you read, this is pushing back doctor's appointments 6-8 months or more. So you can imagine if you have dire services, your appointments are being pushed back 6-8 months or more. Yeah, that's going to have an adverse effect on people's health. I don't know. What are the odds? People just don't go to the hospital just because. It's because they have medical problems and issues. So anyway, caution the government on using medical schools quotas as leverage. Statements like if students don't return, the quota will revert to 5,058 should no longer be made. Again, the whole problem, I think, with the KMA, the doctors union, is that they never offered any other solution. So the government says we need more doctors. We have a super aging population. Doctors are being overworked to the point of 100, 120 hours a week. The average time that a doctor sees a patient is like 3 to 4 minutes. And doctors often work 36-hour shifts. And the thing is that the majority of hospitals are for-pay hospitals. They're for-profit hospitals. So they're not on strike because they're not getting paid. They're striking because they don't like what the government is doing. And it's like, well, how are you going to address the overwork? How are you going to, you're complaining that you're overworked, but then you say, the government says, well, here's a solution. We'll get some more doctors. And then the KMA, the doctors union, says, well, no, we can't do that because that'll destroy the medical system. And if we have more doctors, that'll just be terrible. It's like, but you're overworked. And you're complaining about working 100, 120 hours a week. You're complaining about doing 36-hour shifts. So what is what is another solution to this? And the Korean Doctors Association has zero recommendations. And I just find that very odd. And then what I also find odd is that the Korean media that interviews and does all this, nobody asks that question. It's just like, okay, here's the representative from the Korean Doctors Association, the KMA, and they said their same thing. Oh, it's going to destroy the medical community. It's going to kill people. And it's like, no, more doctors kill people? No, actually, your strike is killing people. But no reporters ask the hard questions. They don't even ask, well, okay, if you're being overworked, what are your solutions to this overburden? No one asks that question ever. So talk about a little bit of frustration of being retired overseas. Yeah, that is part of it. The other thing we're going to take a look at, training doctor strike reveals critical flaws in hospital operations. What are the odds? Where the majority of the medical care provided to the people is through resident training doctors that is overseen by professors or supervisors, and you go on strike, 10,000 of those resident doctors go on strike, and some of the seniors go on strike as well. Yeah, what do you think is going to happen? Experts urge hospitals to deploy more medical specialists, reduce load on junior doctors. But they don't want more doctors. But now you want more senior doctors to do more. See, it doesn't make sense. Many hospitals have developed abnormal manpower distribution in which training doctors account for nearly 40% of the entire medical professionals, due mainly to their lower labor costs. So with that being said, I think junior doctors get paid anywhere from $50,000 to $70,000 a year. Of course, that depends on your specialty, but it's fairly low. And that's another reason why Korea is very big in medical tourism, because of the lower prices. Training doctors and interns who learn on the job while working. After obtaining their license, they pursue medical specialization. They play a key role in emergency room, intensive care, surgery, assistance to medical specialists. Thousands of those junior doctors began submitting resignations February, left hospitals last year to protest the government's plan to increase from 3,058 to 5,058. They only wanted 2,000 more slots. Only 2,000 more. It's not like they were acting for hundreds of millions of people or thousands, tens of thousands of new doctors. Just 2,000 more. That's all. Yeah. So we got a bunch of walkouts. Number of new patients fell 24% in general hospitals, while number of surgeries performed plunged by 50%. 50%. Like I said, when you go to the hospital, it's not like you just say, oh, well, I'm thinking, I got nothing on my calendar today. I got some free time. Hey, let's go get a surgery. No, it's not. This is something. You reduce the number of surgeries by 50%. Some of these things are like life-saving surgeries. Some of these surgeries are like for cancers and tumors and so on and so forth. Huge quality of life issues and things that can affect, whether a person lives or dies earlier or later. And if you get the surgery, obviously you're going to live a little bit longer than if you don't get the surgery. So again, it doesn't really make sense. But the Korean Doctors Association just kind of turns a blind eye. It's like they dig a hole in the sand and they put their head in there and they're like, la, 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 la. They ignore all of the people that are dying. They ignore Now, this causes even more overwork for the doctors that are there, who, by the way, have reduced the number of hours that they work because they're in solidarity. We're standing with our brothers and sisters and our resident doctors, so I'm going to take an extra day off of work. Lord forbid we follow the Hippocratic Oath. It's frustrating. According to statistics tallied by the Health Insurance Review, training doctors account for 37.8% of general hospitals across the country. And there's, like I said, about 100 teaching hospitals in Korea. The 5 biggest hospitals, Seoul National University, Seoul Asan Medical Center, Samsung Medical Center, which I've been there a number of times, Severance, and Seoul St. Mary's, play a key role in providing medical care for patients in critical conditions, and junior doctors account for 39% of the help. And these interns and resident doctors receive about 51,000 and 72 million won in annual income average as of 2020. So the amount was less than 1/3 of the given to medical fellows who are undergoing specialized training after completing residency. So there's a big difference between being a resident doctor and how much you get paid, because obviously you're not a certified doctor, but they're kind of taking advantage of that. So a lot of work is done by the resident doctors. For-profit hospitals are looking to reduce the costs and expenses. So they kind of made this system, and they're reaping the benefits or the cons. There's pros and cons to everything. Association of Interns Residents said these doctors work 77 hours a week on average, and 52% of them work more than 80 hours a week. That's interesting because the Korean Medical Association in the past many times said, hey, we've got doctors that are working 100, 120 hours a week. It's normal to do 36-hour shifts and get a little time off, and you still have to go back to the work to the next day. It's not like you have a weekend off. It's not like the American Medical Association or the American medical doctors, where if you do a 24-hour shift, you get 24 hours off. No. Even their own documents just proves that they need to have more doctors, but they don't want more doctors. It's just very, very problematic. The government is pushing to reform the country's healthcare system. This was Yoon when he was president. He's been impeached. Adding 2,000 slots is deemed a minimal increase, which I think is absolutely true. And it's just, I just don't understand how the Korean Medical Association, because they never offer any solutions as to how we're going to fix the medical problems in the situation that we're in. I think one of the biggest contributors to the overwork is the fact that they bring this upon themselves. And for those people who don't know, like I just mentioned, getting prescriptions, all of my prescriptions, I have to go to the hospital every single month. Every 30 days, I have to go get an appointment with that specialty, like gastro, pain management, this, that, mental health. Yes, I'm crazy. But I have to get a separate appointment for every single one of those issues, which is going to cost money because every appointment is a separate appointment. So I have to do a copay for each and every doctor that I see. And then, of course, I have to get the medications. And it's only good for 30 days. It's very rare to get medications for an extended period, like 60 days or 90 days. For all of my medications for, stomach, pain, mental health, a couple of other things, the 5 meds that I take, I cannot get anything more than 30 days issued on prescriptions. So I have to physically, this isn't like the United States. In the United States, I can get, let's say I get a bottle of medication and it's like, okay, here's your 30-day supply, and then you have 3 refills after that. So in other words, I would be able to call the pharmacy, call the number on the bottle and say, okay, well, hey, you fill this and, it's time. Yes, you can pick up your refill at this place, blah. And I go get it and I'm good for another 30 days. And then another 30 days, another 30 days. So we're talking, we're talking 4 months. And then I would have to go back and see a GP, a general provider, general practitioner, tell them, say, hey, pain meds, I'm out. My stomach meds are out. I need to get a refill. Boom, in and out, done. 2-3 minutes, I'm out the door, and we're good to go. I'm good for another 4 months. Here in Korea, every single medication I need to get an appointment and I need to get a refill, which requires me to go back to the hospital. So this for-profit system that the Korean Doctors Association and the for-profit hospital conglomerates had actually brought this upon themselves. So they want to have a ton of people coming in because that's how they make their money. Pay doctors low wages, the resident training doctors, pay them low wages so that way we can save on expenses, and then have people herded in like cattle every single month like clockwork for whatever they need to do. Now, granted, the Korean Medical Association and the Korean treatments and experiences that we've had real good service. But again, that's going to be dependent on the hospital that you go to. There are bad hospitals everywhere. We know that in the United States. We know that in every single country. But when you have a system that forces your doctors to be overburdened for the sake of money, that's where the problem comes in. And so, trying to get medications. And I'm not talking like, I'm not like on psychotropic bipolar medication that needs, the president's signature to get it because it's so off the wall. No, it's just normal mental health meds. It's normal stomach medicine that is like, really, it's to the point of where it should almost be over the counter. It is that common. And my other medications are really, really common. So it's not like we're talking strange stuff, but they have a system that requires people to overburden the system for the sake of money. And honestly, that's my honest opinion about it. And so then they overwork everybody, and that just compounds the problems even more because of the medical malpractice, when people are tired, working 36-hour shifts, when you see 100 to 120 patients a day, which is some of the things that we've seen in previous articles written by the Korean Doctors Association, and this is terrible and blah, blah, blah. But yet when there's a proposal to get 2,000 more doctors, all of a sudden it's like that disappears. Oh, well, we can't do that. It was going to destroy the medical system. And the number of teaching hospitals, if you do 2,000, what is that? What did we end up doing? 2,000, and there's 100 teaching hospitals. So you're talking about 20 additional doctors per hospital. How many departments are there in a hospital? So you might get one extra doctor, one extra resident trainee doctor, maybe. But they don't want to do that. I just don't get it. And with the super aging population that we have, Korea is now neck and neck with Japan as being a super age population. And the birth rates are so low that Korea, the government, is trying to offer money, paying off loans, getting first-time home buyers incentives for people that are married and have kids, and some other incentives just to get the birth rate up because, Korea and Japan could be empty by the time all the old people die because there's not enough young people. None of them are being born at the rate to replace the population. So, very, very problematic. And I just don't understand why this is allowed to happen for the last 27 years. And again, like I said, the Korean Medical Association offers zero solutions. They just can't have more doctors, can't have more doctors. That's bad, would destroy the medical system. But their medical system really needs to be revamped. And especially with prescriptions, because the majority of people that go to the hospital go to get prescriptions. And that's what makes them money. But they don't want to redo that because then they'll lose money. So hence the problem that we're in now. So basically, as far as the doctor strike, it has basically ended because they're just going back to the norm, and the government is like, screw it. We got bigger fish to fry. We have an election coming up this June, which is next month, and done deal. We're not going to worry about doctors. But still, there's the problem of these resident doctors that went on strike for over a year. They have to go back through residency. They're going to have to redo that residency because they lost so much time. Now look at the medical schools and the students that went on strike. they're going to have to redo that. Now, this is going to have a ripple effect. The problem is because now the medical school students could not pay their loans or whatever that was put on hold. Suddenly lenders are going to be like, wow, it used to be a cash cow that we loan people that want to become doctors. We got our loans paid back. It's a good done deal. But now they went on strike and we lost a bunch of money. So now people who give loans for medical school are they're gonna tighten up the reins a little bit, and that's gonna cause some problems. There's gonna be some fallout with that as well. So yeah, even though the doctor strike is over, it's not over. This is going to ripple out, and as we said, as we saw in the articles, there's going to be more problems down the road. So this isn't a done deal, and the fact remains, the current doctors, you're still 6 to 8 months behind, and it's not like these doctors just suddenly reappear. There's barely any who have returned back to work so far. So like in the double digits, and I'm not talking like 99 or 100. We're talking like 20, 30 have returned to residency. I don't know what these resident doctors are doing. I don't know. Maybe they just don't want to be doctors enough. It's just a very odd situation. Last thing we're going to talk about is Johnny Somali. Johnny Somali is the nuisance idiot streamer that's his lovely face there. His name's Johnny Somali. He's not Somalian. He actually said that he chose that name because he hates Somalians and he wants to give them a bad rep, which he has done. Now, he was a nuisance streamer. He came to Korea, and this is kind of his father, his parents disowned him. Imagine that. I don't know why. He goes around to different countries committing crimes, and he got kicked out of Japan. He was arrested, got kicked out of Japan. But unfortunately, he tried to do the same thing here in Korea because, they don't speak English, and, they'll just brush it under the rug. I might get a fine, then I'll bounce and I'll be a nuisance streamer somewhere else. Well, Korea didn't play that game, and this is going to look He said a lot of things. He's all about free speech, which is just hate speech. He says that all Asians should be killed. He said that Japan should have nuked Korea. He's pro-Japan and he's pro-China. He's just an absolute idiot. This is the timeline of what he did. He uploads a video of himself kissing the Statue of Peace in Yongsan, Seoul, which is actually a statue of the comfort women, to give them some closure and to let you know that during the Japanese occupation, what happened was that the Japanese took the women of Korea and made sex slaves out of them. And so Johnny Somali, and so it's kind of like it's a very, very somber thing to have that statue. And what he ended up doing is he didn't only just kiss the statue, he pretended to feel the statue up. He took his shirt off. Another time he put baby oil on himself and twerked against the statue. It is hugely disrespectful. Now, there's no crime against that, but it's monumentally stupid. He performing a sex act on it. He did that. Insults a convenience store employee, playing loud music and creating a mess, which is what he did in this here. He was actually drunk in public, and you're not supposed to drink alcohol in the stores. He was throwing food at people. He was yelling. He was instigating, disrupting the peace. And he is punched by an unknown assailant during a live stream because he's a massive idiot. He was assaulted again by another Korean YouTuber. His YouTube channel is deleted after streaming pornography. Again, this guy is just massively stupid because what he ends up doing is filming himself as an IRL streamer. So for those of you who don't know, IRL stands for in real life streaming. And then he does stuff to get a rise out of people. So he pushes everybody's buttons. But, streams pornography on YouTube, yeah, that'll get you taken down. Well, he claims it was due to hacking, but yeah, that wasn't the case. Police reported for alleged assault and drug use. He's barred from leaving the country. He streamed footage of himself kissing streamer Bong Bong IRL, which he reported to police as a deepfake. She didn't press charges, but now there's a change in that because there's actually charges for the deepfake, which is huge in Korea. Korean YouTuber Yu Dao-gun assaults Ishmael, and that was the guy who was a UDT SEAL, Navy SEAL here in Korea. He actually went and clocked Ishmael and beat his little butt. And so a lot of Koreans were like, yay! And even though he was arrested and he had to pay a fine, still a lot of people are like, yeah, good job. And they've helped him out with donations. Then Ishmael, Johnny Somali, apologizes in a YouTube video and about what he did, saying because somebody told him and said, hey, well, if you apologize, they'll go lighter on you. And it ends up, so he did his apology, but that same evening, he went and did IRL streaming and said it was all a joke and how it was stupid and blah, 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 and he insulted Korea even more. Ishmael reports to police in Gyeonggi that he was being followed by someone, but the police have yet to verify his claims. Prosecution indicts Ishmael without detention for his obstruction of business charge on 12 November. Handed the streamer over for trial. He faces up to 5 years in prison or a 15 million won fine. Now, here's the interesting thing. We'll continue with this and we'll tell you all what happened. He posts a video in front of the U.S. Embassy holding an emergency passport, saying he was going to get out of Korea. Well, what he ended up doing was, since Korea took his passport, he went to the American Embassy and he says, I lost my passport. So they gave him an emergency passport, thinking he could go to Incheon, go to the airport, jump on a plane and leave Korea, and his problems would be solved. But he didn't know, he's so stupid that he didn't know that it's not the physical passport. It's your name. It's your passport number. You will be flagged when you got to the Incheon airport, which he was, and he was not allowed to leave because he's in trouble with the law. So, yeah, he posts a video on social media claiming to be in the DMZ, that he's moving to the new True Korea with North Korean music playing in the background. He's handed over to the prosecution by police. That's where he kissed the statue, but that's lame compared to all the other stuff. He displayed a deep fake video of him kissing somebody, but they dropped the charges. But the Korean government, those charges are being pressed because it's a sexual crime against somebody who's underage. So it doesn't matter if she wants to press charges or not. He did the deed, and there's significant jail time with that. For his actions in the convenience store, he's been charged with his obstruction of business, which could result up to 5 years in prison, according to the Criminal Act. He claims to be in possession of an emergency passport, but he can't leave the country. He claimed that he was reported to police for drug use, assault, and making deepfake videos, so on and so forth. He's an American citizen, blah, blah, blah. There's some other stuff on here, but this is really not an entire timeline. So the interesting thing is that he went to court here in Korea, and the criminal justice system here in Korea is very different than what we see in the United States. So what happens is somebody commits a crime, the police gather evidence, and if they have enough evidence and they can say, hey, we've got so much evidence here, we're going to pass this on to the prosecutor. When it goes from the investigation phase to the prosecution phase, if it goes to the prosecutor, the successful prosecution rate for the prosecutor is 98%. So yeah, he pled guilty to 3 charges: disruption of business and a couple of other things. Some are considered felonies, but it's not directly a felony crossover like we see in the United States. Let's see. Pat Starr says, hello from the United States. Hello, Pat. How you doing? Good to see you. Talking about Johnny Somali. But it ends up that he went to court. He was an hour late to his court date. So the judge is waiting there. The prosecutor's waiting there. Everybody's waiting there. And he was drunk when he showed up. He was hungover because he got drunk and took drugs the night prior, even until 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. Then he shows up to court drunk. What are the odds? Yeah, he was smashed out of his gourd. And he was very disrespectful to the judge. He lied to the judge saying that he was a student for his occupation, even though there's no proof of that whatsoever. He was trying to say, oh, I'm just a student, and oh, these are just pranks. And well, he pled guilty to all three of these. Now, he's getting charged again with crimes against women and children, deepfake videos, which is very huge, and there's something else, I think, as well. But yeah, it's now you might be thinking, well, he pled guilty to three crimes, a month or two ago. What was his punishment? Well, that's the thing. That's the big difference here in Korea is that they don't punish you after the court trial because he has more court trials that he needs to go to, and he's released on his own recognizance. They don't detain him unless he was like a murderer, rapist, or whatever, which is kind of a good idea because Johnny has gotten in more trouble and he streams all of his content online, which gives the prosecutors awesome evidence, and it goes to the police who investigate it even more. They gain all the videos, and people are submitting videos to the Korean police and the prosecutors so that they can build a case against Johnny on stuff that they might have missed. And yeah, that's where we're at. But he doesn't get his punishment until all of these are concluded. And for investigation, it could be 3 to 4 months for each thing. So the time that he had to spend in Korea, he was arrested, and it's like, okay, well, you got to stay. You're not allowed to leave Korea. You can't work. You're not supposed to work. And so he does the streaming thing, and he does, crypto and donations and stuff like that. So he has money. But the funny thing is that what ends up is that it took about 3 or 4 months for the police to do their investigations. Then it was passed to the prosecutor. Well, now we have this next case that is coming up. And matter of fact, it's this month. I think it's the 12th of May or 16th of May, so one of those 2 dates, middle of May. And it's been about 3 or 4 months since they did the last investigation. And again, remember, once it goes from the police and the police hand all the evidence to the prosecutor, they're pretty damn sure that there's going to be a conviction to the point of the successful prosecution rate is 98%. So yeah, there's a 98% that Johnny's going to get cooked. But when he gets done with this trial in May, there's a possibility that there's other court cases that are going to come about because there's more investigations. He goes out and does more stupid stuff. One of his recent streams, he went out, he was drunk, he was on drugs, he was lit like nobody, and he goes out in public in the morning in his underwear, threatening people, disrupting the peace, disrupting businesses, and so on and so forth. One of the other charge that he's going to get for the middle of this month, in May, is obstruction of business at Lotte World. Lotte World is kind of like Disneyland. And what he ended up doing was playing pornography in the presence of children. And he said that he would be raping children and that other things that he ended up doing, like he was on, not for this court case, but in the past, he was on public transportation systems in Korean with his phone with a Bluetooth speaker jammed on high saying, I have a bomb, in Korean. And then, yeah, it's the dude is a total waste of DNA. I hope, usually Korea doesn't give max sentences, but in this case, I hope they do. Because he really, really he has no remorse whatsoever. Whenever he goes and he says, oh, I apologize, I love Korea, I didn't understand that, comfort women, were so abused during the Korean War. But that doesn't jive because in a previous video, before his apology, he gave a breakdown on how all of these were prostitutes and, it just, he's into forced prostitution. He's into, he even says that if he gets an STD or if he gets HIV, he's going to be a super spreader and he's just going to have unprotected sex and just, it's bad. And then the guy's a total idiot. And the buddy he hangs around with, Hank Yoon, he's not the brightest crayon in the box either. And I think there's going to be some fallout from him. He's a Korean citizen. He went to America to get out of his mandatory military service here in Korea. He ended up actually getting multiple felonies because he bought firearms when he wasn't supposed to. He lied on the 4473, the form that you got to fill out to buy a firearm, claiming that he was a U.S. citizen and he wasn't. And then there was a whole other thing. So he's out of the United States, but he still hasn't done his military service because he's a student. And previously, his mom, from what I've found so far, his mom was some type of artist in the West, some type of big, rich artist, socialite type of person, and his grandfather was a big prosecutor here in Korea, so they've got some clout but he's totally blown that out of the water. There's no respect for him whatsoever. I feel so sorry for his family and his parents. To deal with Hank being the guy that he is. They call him the Asian Nazi. He thinks Asians are less, that white power is the way to go, and then he loves China. He wants to go to China. He knows the Chinese national anthem and sings it, and he's offered prostitution. I mean, it's like, how do these people meet each other? Is it Idiots or Us app? Hey, there's another idiot worse than me. I'm going to go join him. But yeah, it just ends up Johnny Somali's going to be going back this month for trial, and we don't know if there's going to be other problems. But the very big problem is that it's crimes against women and children. There's going to be the latte world, disruption of business, and those are going to be two big things, especially the crimes against women and children. Oh yeah, and the deep fake, which is a crime against women and children. So in other words, when you make a fake video with a sexual act in it, or considered a sexual or intimate act, yeah, and it didn't actually happen. In other words, it's kind of like AI made up. Yeah, Korea don't play games with that. So those are coming up here in May. And since here's the grand plan, because you wish they just slam him, just boom, hit him hard and put him down. Korea's not that way. Korea is like, here's some obstruction of business, here's this. And the thing is, he pled guilty to it because it was all on video. You can't argue that he did not do that. He can't, he can say, oh, it's just a prank. And it's interesting because Johnny is always the guy that says, oh, I just did, this. He never addresses the actual laws that he broke. He says, I don't understand, it's all racist. They're racist against black people and blah, blah, blah. He plays the race card. But he never addresses how he obstructed business. He never addresses how, the things that he did are actual laws here in Korea that he broke, and ignorance is not bliss. So, and he claims, well, I'm an American, I have the right to free speech, and blah, blah, blah. It's like, no. Some countries, they have limited amount of free speech. And just because you have free speech in America doesn't mean that you have free speech in every country that you go to because you're an American. That's not how it works. Matter of fact, in a recent video that Johnny Somali did, him and his buddy Hank got drunk, and they said, hey, tomorrow morning we're going to go to the city office and we're going to protest. And it's just like, oh, this is going to end badly. And he streams all this. So him and Hank go to a city office. They have the flag of England and the flag of Japan, and they have the Chinese flag. Well, they put the other two flags on the ground, they step on them, and then they're waving the Chinese flag, yay, because Hank's a big China guy. He loves China. He wants to live in China, which with the crap that he does, and if Johnny went to China, they would be arrested and you'd never see him again. Where'd that Johnny Somali guy go? Oh, I don't know. Let's just have some wonton, and be, don't know. It's funny how these people always talk about the freedom of free speech and all this, but yet they want to go and live in a country that severely restricts free thought, free speech, and so on and so forth. So yeah, I'm really hoping that after the prison time, him and Hank go to China and then we never hear from them again. Or they go to some other country that just won't put up with their crap. So they go and they protest this stuff. They're stepping on the flags and they're blowing around, flying around the Chinese flag. Well, it ends up the police show up, and of course they're drunk. They're drunk in public and so on and so forth. And it's just a comedy of errors. And all of this stuff is online and streamed. Just absolutely crazy. Let's see. Got a comment from Pat. Says, if you were born in Korea but live in America, do you have to join the Korean Army at 18 to keep your Korean passport or citizenship? No, because in the past, what happens if you're born in Korea but you live in America? Actually, yes. If you're born in Korea and you're a Korean citizenship and you're a male, you have a obligation to serve in the military from 18 to 24 months. So it's mandatory military service. Unfortunately, rich people have gotten their children out of military service, by sending them overseas to go to college. There are some exceptions to the rule, but they're very slim. Some Koreans who have done that have gone to the United States, and then they're like, well, I don't want to do my military service, so I'm just going to stay in the United States. And then basically they get blacklisted from Korea. So and it's not necessarily at 18. Again, there are some exceptions to that. Usually, what happens is you'll have college students who will do like a year or two, their freshman and sophomore year, the first 2 years of college, and then they'll go do their military service somewhere around that age. So it could be, 19, 20, 21, somewhere around there that they'll do their mandatory military service. But yeah, if you live in America, on a visa, you are still considered a Korean citizen, and you still have to do your military service for the most part. However, there are some Koreans who were Korean citizens and got their visas to live in the United States, and they did not do their military service and refused to do their military service. Case in point, there was a Korean pop star, K-pop singer or whatever. It was a long time ago that he refused to do his military service, and he basically got blacklisted. So even though he missed the window to do his military service, and Korea wouldn't accept him back. So it was like, it was huge. And he's like, oh, this is unjust and unfair. And it's like, do your military service. If that's what's required, then do it and get it over with. It's not like it's hard. Let's see. He wants to join before college, but my son's Korean is not that good. That would be, I don't know. You would have to get somebody who's a lot smarter than me about this. He wants to join before college, but my son's Korean is not that good. Yeah, I'm not sure about that. That would be, you would have to get with Korean immigration or the Korean consulate to talk to them about that. So definitely get in touch with a professional or somebody who's a subject matter expert on that. Because you definitely don't want to, fly in the face and get some wrong information about mandatory military service and so on and so forth. Excuse me. So I don't know about that. Really, I know that there's mandatory military service. Again, there's some exceptions. I just don't know how that would pan out. So yeah. Excuse me. So anyway, a number of people tried to dodge their military service. There was actually a recent case of a professional gamer. He was kind of like one of the top 10 in Korea for gaming and doing all that stuff. But he pretended to be retarded or developmentally slow or overeat and being obese, his mental capacity. He kind of did those two things so he wouldn't have to do his military service. But then they found out it was like, you're a professional gamer. Yeah, you can do this. And he got into big trouble. Pat Star says, I'm an American, but my wife is Korean. I will be back in Seoul to visit in-laws this July. Cool. Yeah, I'm an American too. My wife is Korean, but she became an American citizen. And we have a daughter, and she's a doctor, and so she's doing really good, and that's kind of cool, and we get to see her. But yeah, as far as your son, definitely contact a Korean consulate about that. But if your son was, it depends on where you're born, because I was an American service member, I'm an American citizen. My wife was a Korean national. We were married. We had our daughter. But because I was in the military, my daughter was an American citizen. So she has U.S. citizenship, even though she has Korean heritage. So I don't know how that applies to you. If that was the case with your son, being an American citizen, he wouldn't have to serve in the Korean military. So yeah, I'm not sure about that, but if you were a military service member and how all that goes, but just kind of relaying our information and sharing what we did and how that all panned out. But yeah, of course, our kid is a daughter, so she wouldn't have to do military service, but she wouldn't have to do it anyway, even if she was a male, because she was an American citizen born to an American service member. But if, yeah, that'd be interesting. Now you got me wondering. It's like, oh, I wonder what the whole situation is. But yeah, you're going to be back in Seoul to visit the in-laws in July. Ooh, it's going to be hot in July. Bro, it's going to be hot. July and August is probably the two worst months to come to Korea because of the heat and because of the humidity. So if it was me, I would either do it in the spring or do it in the fall, because July, I basically hibernate inside because of the heat and humidity. So anyway, that's what we got going on. We talked about the SKT phone company getting hacked, the largest in telecom history here in Korea. The doctor strike is basically over. No new doctors. We're going to go on and just be overworked and ever-aging population. We don't need more doctors. We're just going to overwork the doctors we have now. And then Johnny Somali, the idiot nuisance streamer, we talked about him and how he's getting slow roasted over a Korean barbecue grill, and hopefully he gets a lot of prison time. So it won't be, he had his one trial date. He pled guilty to all three of those. He's going to trial or before a judge, not a trial like, jury and all that. He just stands before a judge and he will plead guilty or not guilty. If he pleads not guilty, he'll still have to wait a number of months, go before the judge again, and he'll plead his case and so on and so forth. But because there's a 98% success rate, Johnny's probably going to be cooked on these things as well. And then if there's no more cases after that, then it'll be a number of months before he actually gets his sentencing for both of those trial dates. But the thing is, on the trial date in May, this month, the judge is going to see and say, oh, you already pled guilty. You're a criminal. So you're a habitual criminal. So he could get stiffer sentencing when all of this is rolled into one, and all of these will be served concurrently. So it's not like he's going to, I'll do 5 months here, get out, have to do another 5 months. No, it will all be, if you get X amount of years here, X amount of years here, you will have to do all of those back to back. And there's no such thing as time served because he's been released on his own recognizance. He just can't leave Korea. So the possibility of him getting prison time looks pretty good. Now, there's still the possibility that Johnny could, they could say, well, his punishment was just having to stay in Korea about a year. And we're just going to slap on the wrist some fines and let him go. There is the possibility of that. I'm really hoping for prison time. And this is somebody who worked in prisons and somebody who did prison ministry for a number of years. I don't wish prison on anybody that doesn't deserve it, but if you deserve it, Johnny Somali is the person who deserves max sentencing. And he's like 24, 25 years old. He really deserves this. But I don't think it'll change him. He hasn't changed. He's gotten in trouble in Israel. He's gotten in trouble in Japan. He got arrested in Japan. Wherever he goes, he gets in trouble. And fortunately, Korea, they have a chance to nail this guy to the wall. And the problem is if they don't, that's going to be open season. All these other IRL streamers are going to be like, oh, he got a slap on the wrist. Bunch of IRL streamers, these nuisance streamers, are going to come to Korea and do the exact same thing. So Korea really needs to have a hard stance. They need to nail this guy to the wall. And so keep your fingers crossed. Keep your fingers crossed. We'll see how this goes. It could be a combination of fines, prison time, whatever. I'm hoping for just tons of prison time. We're to 10, 15 years. I would be happy with 10 years because there's no time served here in Korea like we have in the United States. If you didn't know, in the United States, I worked in prisons in the state of Colorado for over 11 years. And let's say you get convicted of a crime, you go to a state prison, and let's say you get 10 years. If you conduct yourself as a model prisoner and you don't get into trouble, basically you can get out in half the time for good time. They call it good time. Korea does not have good time. When you go to prison, you go to prison, and that's if it's 10 years, you're there for 10 years. It's very rare that people get their sentences cut short or they're let out early. So yeah, it's kind of interesting. And Korea also has it's the only country that has a foreigner-only prison, and that's up in Chonan. So any foreigners that get in trouble, they all go there. And so you're talking about Chinese, you're talking about other nationalities that Johnny Somali has insulted many and numerous times. Yeah, it could be very interesting. And he'll probably have to do forced labor. So I'm really hoping for a 10-year plus prison sentence. But yeah, that's what we got going on here, being retired in Korea. The wife and I, we sold everything, brought a couple of suitcases, and boom, here we are in Korea, just over 2.5 years. And it's been good so far. Again, there's some frustrations, hacking and doctor strikes, and things are a little bit different than they were in the United States. But yeah, for the most part, those things are acceptable. You're going to have do some compromises when you retire overseas. I know somebody's going to ask this because I always get messages, hey, what visa do you and your wife have? Because Korea doesn't have retirement visas like Thailand or Philippines or other countries that are retirement friendly. Because my wife has Korean ancestry, she was a Korean citizen, became a U.S. citizen, parents are Korean, the whole 9 yards, she was able to get an F4 visa. I was able to get an F1 visa because I am the spouse of an F4 visa holder. So for those people who are wondering, how did I retire in Korea? That's basically it in a nutshell. So anyway, yeah, that's what we got going on. Some fun stuff. Loving my lattes. So if you're in the similar situation, you want to retire in Korea, check out my videos and stuff like that because I can provide you what we went through, sharing information, searching for an apartment. We bought this apartment. I bought the apartment here, buying vehicle, banking, all that kind of stuff. But it ends up it's been good. We've enjoyed our time here, and especially because we were allowed to retire early because of the reduced expenses here in Korea versus where we lived in the United States. It's a win-win. So your job is to like and subscribe to the channel. Please give the video and my channel a like and subscribe. I would really appreciate that. If you have any questions, concerns, you can leave comments in the comments section down below. But if you absolutely 100% want to get in touch with me, there's my email address. It's also in the description box, officialthevariedlife@gmail.com. And if you're so inclined, you can also buy me a coffee because Lord knows I love my lattes. And that's what the little scrolling thing here, ticker is people, awesome people who have bought me coffee, and I appreciate that. But with that said, there's other content creators that I watch that I buy coffee. So we're just kind of spreading the love around, and if you do that, yeah, that's a bonus as well. So that's going to be it. Like I said, wife and I are going to head over to LGU Plus. We've kind of narrowed it down on what we're going to get. Probably going to get the new iPhone 16 Pro Max, upgrade from the 13. Then I'll use this as my streaming camera, which will be even better quality than what we're seeing here off this little webcam that I got. So yeah, upgrade on multiple levels. We'll let you go. Today is Thursday here in Korea, the 1st of May. So we're getting down to the wire and getting closer to December. Let's say, we got a question. So let's go back and get this question from Pat. Pat ends up talking. He says, did you keep anything in the States in self-storage? The answer is absolutely not. We sold absolutely everything. We had the house, the car, the truck, the guns, the ammo, everything in the kitchen junk drawer, being married for over 30 years, we had tons of stuff. We had a 4,000 square foot house, basement, gym, the whole 9 yards, more guns, more ammo, more guns and ammo, more ammo, more ammo, more food. I was a prepper. And we sold absolutely everything. We didn't store anything. We came with a couple of suitcases. One caveat is we made a couple of boxes of pictures and keepsakes, but everything else went away, and we mailed that to our daughter, and eventually she was able to get that to us here in Korea. So, but other than that, yeah, we didn't keep nothing. We're not coming back to the States. It's done deal. If for some reason we have to leave Korea, we will go and retire in another country, but we will not come back to the United States. Yeah, retiring early is the deal. If I went back to the United States, if I went to, I could probably find a place where I could retire and not have to work, but it would be it would be slim. But with that said, yeah, I don't ever want to go back to the United States. Overseas retirement is where it's at, half the expenses. We love it. Miss the United States, absolutely. But yeah, we don't have anything stored. So, but yeah, that's it. Some fun stuff going on. Like, subscribe, all of that good stuff. If you have anything that you want to see, I'm trying to get the wife to do a video where we go over our monthly expenses. She's real camera shy. When they say that whole thing, opposites attract, I'm big and strong. She's smart and beautiful. Will put myself out there on the camera. She's camera shy. Yeah, so we'll see how that goes. But eventually, I'm going to wear her down, and we're going to do an expense video of what we pay here in Korea. So yeah, it'll be fun. But anyway, thanks for watching, everybody. I appreciate that, and we hope to see you on the next video, all right? All right, peace. We'll see you. Good stuff. Love the coffee.